When it comes to horse racing, you can never have too much information. With Twin Spires, you can place your bets with confidence, whether you use handicapping insights like our Brisnet speed ratings, prime power and past performances, the guidance of our experts' top picks, or just choose a name that catches your eye. Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with Twin Spires. And now you can race to victory with Twin Spires tournaments.
Welcome back to the Twin Spires Racing Roundtable. I'm Ashley Anderson here with James Scully and Vance Hanson, coming to you a day later so that we could talk about the Bluegrass and the results from yesterday at Keeneland. And we'll be looking at all 100-point prep races that happened over the last couple of days at Aqueduct, Santa Anita, also over at Maiden in Dubai, and of course Keeneland. We'll also look at the Oaks races and which horses impressed us the most from those 3 Oaks races this weekend. And then finally, we'll talk about, well, I think we're sticking only to the prep races because it's kind of the major thing that happened the last couple of days. But let's start with our likely favorite in the Kentucky Derby. It's Journalism, who just won the Santa Anita Derby. He now is coming in here with actually not the top on the leaderboard. It's Burnham Square after yesterday's results, but clearly the horse to beat in the Kentucky Derby. So James, looking at Journalism heading to the first Saturday in May, does he have any weaknesses that you're concerned about?
Well, Journalism has won 4 straight, all 3 of his stakes attempts. He's 2 for 2 this year, and as well as establishing himself as clearly the top 3-year-old in California, he's going to be a big favorite, a big Kentucky Derby favorite because of his advantage on numbers. He got a 108 Brisnet speed rating in the Santa Anita Derby win. That number essentially just basically lays over the field, and I think it's going to be that way on a lot of metrics. So, with a 20-horse field size, these you're never going to have the favorite too short. America Pharaoh, Justified, Nyquist, California Chrome, they're all like 5-2. And those were all big favorites coming into the race. So, but I do think that because whoever's going to be the second choice is sort of up for grabs, the dynamics are such that Journalism, he could be in that 5-2, 3-1 range come post time in the Derby. And it'll be a gap back to the second choice. But as far as the question goes, his potential vulnerability will be trip, because he has really been a stretch running closer in both races this year and in 3 of his 4 wins. He's not in first at the stretch call. He's not in first. He was trailing Barnes by a length at the stretch call in the San Felipe. Didn't have the best trip, obviously, on the far turn of Santa Anita Derby, but he's still back, behind more than a length behind Barnes at the stretch call, the Santa Anita Derby. So he's making up that ground in the stretch. And, that typically that kind of grinding style, I think it will be effective if Journalism can get positioned by the top of the stretch in the Kentucky Derby. But if he's further off the pace, closing from mid-pack or further back, it'll be interesting to see, how much ground he can make up on the far turn, because the sharp turns at Churchill Downs favor nimble, athletic runners who make up a ton of ground while they're cornering and get in position by the top of the stretch. So I think the trip dynamics, the fact that he hasn't just been flying by rivals on the far turns of his wins, he's still trailing when he straightens into the stretch. That's a potential vulnerability. But the fact remains that he's going to be the fastest 3-year-old in the 2025 Kentucky Derby field.
Vance, do you see any other weaknesses as well, or in agreement with James here?
I basically agree with what James has said. This horse kind of reminds me a lot of California Chrome in the sense that he kind of towers over the field as far as speed figures are concerned. He's going to be about in the 5-2 range. I made the mistake in 2014 of trying to beat California Chrome. For the next 4 weeks, unless there's some hiccups along the way, I don't see, any horse seriously challenging this one if Journalism runs to his recent races at Santa Anita. And I agree with James that this is all going to be a trip race for him. I mean, he's going to be facing a field much larger than he has seen throughout his major Southern California preps. It's going to be congested, but One good thing is that there seems to be a lot more pace signed onto this Derby. I think we're going to talk about that in a little bit here, but there should be a very fast pace for him to set things up. And basically, for me, it's all going to come down to Trip and whether he gets a clean one and one where he can take advantage of it.
As y'all have mentioned, this 108 speed figure, a huge number that he got in the Santa Anita Derby, and he has triple-digit speed figures, late pace speed figures in his last 4 starts. His only loss came at 6 furlongs on debut, and he's won at route distances ever since then. But the field size, he's faced 4 rivals in 4 of his 5 starts, and then the only time he faced more than 4 rivals was when he broke his maiden at Del Mar racing a mile, and that was when he beat 9 rivals. So, of course, this potential 20-horse field could be something that potentially shakes him up a little bit. Also, there's the post draw. He gets dreaded post number 17. Maybe that could be the curse that makes it so that he doesn't win the first Saturday of May. But right now, clearly the best horse heading to the Kentucky Derby. And we saw a couple other performances this weekend, though, that may actually lend itself to a winner in the Kentucky Derby as well. So let's move over to the other Derby prep races. We're at the 100 points. We, of course, had the UAE Derby over at Maiden Race Course. We had the Bluegrass Stakes that happened at Keeneland yesterday, and then we had the Wood Memorial at Aqueduct. Or, Vance, do you feel that maybe neither or none of those prep races are going to be more impactful in the Derby than the Santa Anita Derby?
Well, as far as impact, I would just say the top 2 finishers of the Santa Anita Derby, Journalism and Baeza, are clearly really top contenders. Baeza does lack experience, but if he gets into the Derby field, he's kind of on the bubble outside looking in at the moment. I think he needs maybe up to a handful of more defections, which he could certainly get. I think he has the potential to run a big race. But among the other races that you mentioned, if I had to pick a horse out of one of them to keep an eye on, and it would probably be Burnham Square from the Bluegrass Stakes. Horse is bred to run all day long. He showed, great stamina yesterday, winning the Bluegrass in the final jumps over East Avenue. He's going to crave more distance, and like Journalism, he's going to benefit from a pretty hot pace. So, of the other prep races that we saw, I'd take a look at the Bluegrass, but number 1 for me still is the Santa Anita Derby.
What about you, James?
Well, I'm not as keen on Baeza. I give him credit for running a good race in Santa Anita Derby. I thought he got, the rest of the field didn't run very well in that race, especially Bob Baffert's duo in that race. So I think he was a little bit fortuitous in that sense and perhaps got a little bit tired late. But he's definitely on the come for John Charest. I just think the Derby could be too much too soon for him. As far as the other races, the UA Derby at Maidan and the Wood Memorial at Aqueduct and the Bluegrass at Keeneland, I'll go with the Bluegrass. But I do want to mention, though, that I do think that the Wood with Rodriguez, I mean, listen, he went wire to wire in his maiden win in January, beat Baeza that day pretty handily. And then they tried to rate him in his next 2 stakes starts. That horse, his only chance in the Derby is going to be on the front end. He's going to add speed to the race. We saw Admire Daytona, a son of Dreyfong, the Breeders' Cup Sprint winner Dreyfong, out of a Shackleford mare. I mean, he's bred for like a mile. He led wire to wire in the UAE Derby. To me, his only chance is on the front end in the Kentucky Derby. And the Bluegrass with East Avenue, he entered that race with only 10 points. Running second puts him in the race, and he showed in the Bluegrass. I mean, he's only effective when he isn't behind horses. When he gets behind horses, he's faltered badly. So he's going to add pace to Kentucky Derby. I think the Kentucky Derby got a whole bunch of speed over the weekend. Even Citizen Bull. Here's a horse that had led wire to wire in 3 consecutive stakes. They're rating him on Saturday, and he runs 4th by 10 lengths. So he's eligible to come out gunning out of the gate, and that's all going to benefit Burnham Square. Like Vance said, we saw it right there. He cornered it widest of all on the far turn and into the stretch. He's out there in the middle of the track in the Bluegrass. I didn't think that was the best place to be on the track, and he determinedly wore down East Avenue, who ran a really good race, on the front end. So he's a horse that could continue to show more, to me, for Ian Wilkes back at Churchill Downs, where he was based and raced last fall. He's definitely going to be a horse to consider at the very least for exactas, trifectas, and superfectas, because it's easy for me to envision a horse like Burnham Square hitting the board potentially in the Kentucky Derby.
I agree with you all on, we saw a lot of pace this past couple of days and over the weekend with these prep races. And to me, I ended up going with the Wood Memorial. Rodriguez really impressed me. He came out with a 105 brisnet speed rating, and we knew there was other speed in this race. And I honestly thought it was going to set up for an off the pace winner, but Rodriguez just had another gear. He had a 93 E1 rating on brisnet, a 103 E2, and then a 101 late pace rating. Drew away to win by 3.5 lengths. I was really impressed with the way he looked here at 1.125 at Aqueduct. And the Wood Memorial hasn't really had much of an impact in the last couple decades, really. The last time we had a winner of the Kentucky Derby come out of this was in 2003 with Funny Side, but overall, there's been 20 Kentucky Derby winners come out of this prep race, and I think this might be the year that we see a big impact. Grande was making his third career start, finished second there, and that was his first time facing stakes company. So I thought that was a good performance that he could improve off of as well. And to me, I thought the top two runners, they really stood out to me coming out of this past weekend. So Rodriguez, I think, taking notice. And James, I know you had a future wager on him. I think it was maybe pool 2. And we weren't really sure, would he be ready in time for the Kentucky Derby? Bob Baffert mentioned he's by authentic. They're late bloomers. But right now, I mean, Rodriguez looks like his best chance in the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I mean, and Mike Smith, I mean, he's, to me, his tactics are going to be clear. He's going to be sending hard with Rodriguez at the break. I mean, he won't be the only one. I mean, we have American Promise, who's been a little bit forgotten, but he won the Virginia Derby in front running fashion, and he's been training bullets for D. Wayne Lucas. So we've had like intense pace duels in the last 3 editions of the Kentucky Derby, and this year is setting up now all of a sudden potentially to be more of the same. With some of these colts looking to be showing the way, or at least not, up there on the front end in the clear. And that can go either way. Sometimes these horses can sort each other. The speed horses can just sort of settle into a rhythm. Other times they can just go at it like they did in the Mage Derby, where they just ran all the speed that was doing on the front end that day, backed up to be like outside the top 10.
Any closing thoughts on the prep races for the Derby this past weekend? Anything more on the UAE Derby? We haven't had a winner of the Kentucky Derby yet come out of that race, but Forever Young was very, very close last year.
Yeah, I mean, Admire Daytona, to me, who won the UAE Derby, he flattered Luxor Cafe. He was exiting a well-beaten 4 to him in the Hyacinth. And he got the stretch out to 1 mile and 3/16 on Saturday, but I don't see him factoring at 1.25 miles. And I thought the runner-up, same thing. They're just going to be up against it at Churchill Downs.
Let's move over to the 3 Kentucky Oaks prep races worth 100 points to the winner. We had Lecaro win the Ashland on Monday. We had Ballerina d'Oro in the Gazelle, and we also had Tenma in the Santa Anita Oaks. So, Vance, who impressed you the most of those 3 prep races?
I don't think we saw the very best of either Tenma or Ballerina d'Oro. Ballerina d'Oro showing some greenness, some erratic running in the stretch of the Gazelle. Barely got up as a heavy favorite. I don't think she's come quite back to her best 2-year-old form that we saw in her second place finish in the Demoiselle. So I think she can run a big race in the Oaks. I just don't. I wasn't encouraged by her performance in the Gazelle. Tenma, it was a very slow pulling track at Santa Anita, and she got 1 mile and 1/16 in the Santa Anita Oaks and over 146, which I mean, she can run much faster than that, but that just wasn't the very best effort in my opinion. So the filly that kind of stood out to me among the 3 preps was Lecaro on Monday in the Ashland. Mark Casse has gotten her in a really good spot all winter, all spring. She won the Suncoast of Tampa in her season debut. He went a little light on her for the Devona Dale because he wanted to target the Ashland. She finished second in the Devona Dale, but was really in a good place here in the Ashland. She was fortunate that the other speed kind of broke slow here, so she got an uncontested lead. But boy, she found another gear in the stretch and easily dispensed with the rest of the field. So a very good effort. Cassie off to a hot start at Keeneland so far through the first 3 days. And he's very confident this filly can run back to another big performance in less than 4 weeks in the Oaks. So I think she has the potential among the three winners this weekend that we saw running a really good race.
And she got that one in the Pocahontas as a 2-year-old, so she already has the form at Churchill.
That's right. Cassie said she loves Churchill, so she's in a good spot.
James, did Lakara impress you, or was someone else your top filly?
I'm gonna go in a different direction, but I will say, as far as Lakara, yeah, her affinity for Churchill is definitely an advantage. One thing about her, though, is that she's got to deal with 5G and potentially other speed in the Kentucky Oaks, and I think she's basically the key to her Ashland win was getting clear early. So I'm a little bit dubious she'll get that kind of trip in the Kentucky Oaks.
And there was a speed bias Monday too. I felt a lot of front runners that were winning Monday at Keeneland.
Yeah, that's fair. But the horse I won from the three Oaks preps, the Gazelle, the Ashland, and the Santa Anita Oaks, is Timma, the Santa Anita Oaks winner. This filly, like Vance said, she's proven she could run. I mean, she ran a mile and a 16th at 144. So she's proven she can run a lot faster than that final time in the Santa Anita Oaks on Saturday. And I think she needed the race. For some reason, we saw it on Saturday. For some reason, on February 1st, Citizen Bull beats Rodriguez and Matakid Road, just crushed them in the Robert Lewis. And then on the second, Timma just crushed her opposition in the Las Virgenes. And instead of running them in the next round of preps, he trained them both up to Saturday off of 2-month layoffs, and they both came back flat. I mean, Citizen Bull was a shell of himself. He got beat 10 lengths in fourth. He got outfinished by Westwood, who had no business outfinishing him. And Timma was in the exact same boat. She didn't run as poorly, but that was not her best effort by any stretch. She's going to improve significantly upon that effort. And the one thing she's got going for her is tactical ability. She's going to have the chance, if she shows up with her best at Churchill Downs, to strike, turn in for home, and get the jump on Good Cheer and the rest. So I see her as a serious Oaks contender, despite the final time in that Santa Anita Oaks. I think she'll improve upon that effort and show up with a good effort for 3-time Oaks winner Bob Baffert at Churchill.
I'm with you, James. I've been all about Good Cheer this whole time, but I'm starting to have this gut feeling that Tenma is going to make a big splash at the Kentucky Oaks. And she has been facing small fields over in California, but if you look at her speed figures, she does have a 97 as a career best in the Starlet. And if you look at Good Cheer's speed figures, her career best is a 93, and that happened all the way back in September of 2024 as a 2-year-old. And we most recently have seen her with a 90, an 89, and a 90 in her last 3 starts. Tenma also had a 120, I think it was a 122 class rating. I just lost my past performances that I had in front of me. Let's see. She had a 122 class rating last out in the Santa Anita Oaks. And of course, she is facing 4 rivals in this race, but she settled off the pace. And you mentioned that one dud of her performance. That was the one time that she had blinkers as well. Bob Baffert said she was just not mentally ready that day. We've seen a lot of improvement. He said she's gotten more and more professional. So heading into the Oaks, I'm actually feeling a little bit stronger about Tenma than Good Cheer, just for the fact that she's going to be closer to the pace as well. And depending on where the draw is for all of these horses, really, that could change a lot of things. But Good Cheer comes from off the pace. Could this be really the race where she finds some adversity? She hasn't had a lot of adversity to overcome, but Tenma, to me, yeah, it wasn't her fastest race, but I think she's definitely one to respect. Really, to me, it's going to be her or Good Cheer that wins the Kentucky Oaks.
I will say in Good Cheer's defense, I mean, pace makes the race, and she's a closer. So I mean, she's in these slow paced races. It's sort of like with Zenyatta. I mean, she can't control how fast they run early. All she could do is her job. And if those numbers come back lower, it's because of the pace. It's not because she's turning in some kind of lesser performance. You would think, being a closer like Good Cheer is, having run in 6 slow pace races to open her career, that if she gets a fast pace in the Derby, that will only help enhance her chances. But it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes, like closers that relish slow pace setups, they get a fast pace and it takes them out of their element. So to me, we talked about trip dynamics with journalism. It's going to be a little bit of trip dynamics with Good Cheer, but Good Cheer still remains the horse to beat. I mean, she's a 3-time winner at Churchill Downs, or 2-time stakes winner at Churchill Downs. She's going to be a handful.
Any closing thoughts on these final 100-point prep races before our last stop on the road to the Kentucky Derby this coming Saturday? All you have to say? All right. Well, then we will leave it to next Tuesday to talk about that final prep race that's happening at Keeneland on Saturday, which I don't know how much of an impact it's going to have on the leaderboard, but that'll be it. The points will be wrapped up, and then it could be
a Preakness prep.
That's true. Yeah. We've got Hypness in there waiting for that big race coming for Kenny McPeak. He's been talking about Hypness, so I'm excited to see what happens there. But we will be back next Tuesday with more racing recaps, and Torpedo Anna is back at the track as well. So we'll see you next Tuesday.
When it comes to horse racing, you can never have too much information. With Twin Spires, you can place your bets with confidence, whether you use handicapping insights like our Brisnet speed ratings, prime power and past performances, the guidance of our experts' top picks, or just choose a name that catches your eye. Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with Twin Spires. And now you can race to victory with Twin Spires tournaments.